Noticed that my left knee was hurting quite a bit. I thought it was maybe just an injury from like walking on it wrong or like moving it the wrong way, so I kind of ignored it. I was 23, I didn't expect anything crazy. They took an x-ray and that's when they found the tumor. It was very visible on an x-ray since it was bone cancer. In the moment that they said it was a tumor and it had some very concerning qualities. They couldn't tell me it was cancer, but they could tell me that it looked aggressive, concerning, all the words you don't necessarily want to hear. The prognosis I was given was it could be a few months. Hopefully it's more than a year, and no more than a few years. Around the time that I was diagnosed, I had just kind of settled into a career in marketing and publishing, which I was having a blast doing. And yeah, I was 23 years old, so just kind of felt like I was just starting off in the real world. The knee pain was like almost like a burning pain, I describe it as. Like it was very sharp, very like hot, and just like very, very uncomfortable. It started in the summer of 2021, and then it was getting progressively worse, but I'm really stubborn. I was really, really convinced it was nothing. And then me and my husband went on a trip to New York in November to celebrate my 23rd birthday. Big city, lots of walking. And my knee was getting worse and worse and worse as we were doing like over 20K steps a day. And I made the decision that when I got back from that trip, I would start going to physio and see if maybe physiotherapy could help me out. Physiotherapy was very hit or miss. My physiotherapist was great, but we found that it was kind of like one step forward, two steps back. He thought that it might have been an injury, so we were trying to strengthen the surrounding areas, and it was giving me some relief, but then it would get much worse. And then I'd get a little more relief, and then it would get much worse. So he suggested that I go get a CT scan or an ultrasound or something. But he did suggest talking to my family doctor just in case there was something more wrong. Again, we didn't think cancer. We just thought stubborn injury. In January of 2022, I was like just about to go to my doctor and talk to him about getting a CT, and wait times here in Canada can be long for that kind of thing. It can be upwards of 6 months, year. It can take a long time to get in for that diagnostic imaging. So I was putting it off, but I woke up one morning in January and I couldn't walk. My knee was really inflamed, really painful. And again, I was really stubborn. I was like, no, I can just wait for the CT scan. And my husband, who is an angel, was like, nope, we're going to the ER. We're going in an Uber or an ambulance. You get to pick. Which I am very thankful that he knows when to call me on being too stubborn and is like, nope, it's actually time to deal with this. So we went to the ER or to urgent care, and they took an x-ray, and that's when they found the tumor. It was very visible on an x-ray since it was bone cancer, so I didn't have to do a lot of advocating for myself to check things out. It was difficult. Since we were still operating under a lot of COVID restrictions, I was alone. They didn't let my husband come back with me, which is fine. It was a really busy urgent care. Like, there wasn't really even room for him. And I kind of had a feeling something was wrong because they took the x-ray. The x-ray tech was acting really weird. Then they left me alone in a room for 2 hours, and I was thinking to myself, like, okay, something showed up on that x-ray. Something showed up on that x-ray that is more complicated than I think anyone knows. In the moment that they said it was a tumor and it had some very concerning qualities, they couldn't tell me it was cancer, but they could tell me that it looked aggressive, concerning, all the words you don't necessarily want to hear. In that moment, something kind of switched in my brain, and I was scared and I was sad, but I mostly was just like, okay, how do I survive this? Like, I refer to it as like my lizard brain, like something kind of clicked where I was like, oh, okay, like There's fight, there's flight, but there's also just like survive. And I think that's what kind of clicked for me. So I had to call my husband, tell him the news, and both of us were just like, okay, we will find a way through this. After that initial x-ray, it took about a month to get the like full diagnosis. There was lots of blood work, CT scans, and then they also had to do a CT guided biopsy as well to like officially diagnose things. I was diagnosed on Valentine's Day, actually, of 2022, which was a weird date, but we took it. And then, yeah, that's when the official diagnosis began. And then I started treatment, I think, less than a week after that. The initial treatment plan, I was given the option to preserve my fertility before we started. I did not take it. I felt as if I had never really felt drawn to being a parent, and also really didn't want to delay my treatment any further. Because what they had said was that the tumor was large, it was aggressive, and it was a miracle it hadn't metastasized anywhere yet. And I was like, okay, I'm done operating on miracle time. I would like to actually just move this along as quickly as possible. The initial treatment after that was I did 5 rounds of chemotherapy, which was inpatient. So I stayed overnight for a week at a time. And then I had a very complicated limb salvaging surgery. So I got to keep my leg, which was not a given, but the official name of the surgery was a proximal tibia replacement with gastrocnemius flap. So they took some of my femur, my entire knee, and most of my tibia and replaced it with metal, and then took a muscle from the back of my calf, cut it, and wrapped it around the front of my shin to stabilize the prosthetic. So I think that was like a 10-hour surgery. After that, I was technically no evidence of disease, but they wanted to make sure. So I did another, I think 5 rounds after that. Recovery was very difficult. It was hard to relearn how to walk again on like what felt like a brand new leg. And also trying to learn to walk again while being so weak from all the chemotherapy. Building muscle was really, really difficult. Building stability was really, really difficult. But the treatment was there was a bit of a road bump where my first round after surgery, I had a just like strange life-threatening side effect where I got an intestinal infection and had to be put on IV nutrition for a month, and stay in the hospital and not eat anything and give my stomach and my intestines time to heal. So that was a bit of a like road bump in there. But then after that, finished up treatment, and I finished chemo the first time in October of 2022. But honestly, I'd say recovery's ongoing. Like it's a weird little leg that I have, and it requires a lot of maintenance. So I'm just happy that I got to keep it in the end. In the summer of 2024, I was out for a walk with my husband, and we made it maybe half a block from our apartment, and mid-step, my leg snapped in half. There was no warning, there was no weird feeling, there was no anything. I literally just took a step, and my leg snapped in half at the shin, which was very scary and very traumatic. Took a long time for me to even get the surgery to fix it, just because I was on the emergency surgery list, but I was technically at the bottom of it because my life or my limb wasn't threatened. Like everything was still not intact, but I was okay laying in bed, basically. And there was a lot of people, obviously, that are on the emergency surgery list that are not that stable. So I kept getting bumped. I'd get wheeled halfway to the OR, and they'd be like, "Oop, just kidding, back to your room." So I think I waited 2.5 weeks for surgery, stuck in bed, which was very difficult. And then had a surgery to replace the rod where it had broken. And then stayed about another week in the hospital, relearning to walk again so I could go home. But yeah, very, very scary. And the only explanation they could find was that it was just a hardware failure. There was nothing I did wrong, nothing the surgeons did wrong. It was just a freak accident. The gap between the initial surgery and the hardware failure was almost exactly 2 years. I think it was just slightly over 2 years, like by a couple of days. So it was a good amount of time, but they're supposed to last, like the surgery is supposed to last for like upwards of 10-15 years. So I found during that time I was attending a lot of support groups with a organization called Young Adult Cancer Canada, or they shorten it to YAC. They do a lot of online like Zoom support groups, which I found very helpful to try to find some community. And I also took up art again. Like I was always a like creative kid, and then I stopped as I got older. But I started painting again and writing again for like my own pleasure, not just for work. And those two things also very much helped me. Yeah, I definitely started painting like much more when my leg broke because I was stuck in bed in the hospital. And I'd done the inpatient chemo before, so I was no stranger to a long hospital stay, but I was so used to feeling so sick that I just sleep the whole time. So this time I was awake and not sick and in pain that was managed. So I was very bored. So I took up painting, and I was on a teaching floor in the hospital, and there was a bunch of nursing students, and they would all come in and make a request, and I'd paint it for them and give it to them. I think I left with maybe like 10 paintings after a nearly 30-day stay, and I think I gave away probably like 60. Like I was just painting all day, every day, like graduation cards, birthday cards, like whatever, pet portraits, like whatever they wanted, I would just paint and give to them. And it made me feel really productive and good and helped honestly keep my mind off of the pain. So that's something that I've adopted for all my other hospital stays afterwards as well. There's definitely been a lot since the leg break. So it happened in June of 2024. I went home, like back to Winnipeg, where I grew up, for a bunch of weddings in August and September. And while I was there, I got the phone call that my most recent scan was showing some really concerning traits in my lungs, and that they can pretty confidently say that the cancer was back. So in September of 2024, lots of appointments, consults with a surgeon. They ended up telling me that there was a nodule in each of my lungs, so I would need to have 2 separate surgeries. So my first one was in October of 2024, and then my second one was in January of 2025. Those were just video-assisted thoracic surgery. They took a wedge out of each of my lungs, basically. Surgeries went really well. They got clear margins. Everything was looking pretty good until November of 2025. I noticed a really weird lump in my side, kind of on my flank. Like I noticed it because I put my hands on my hips, and then I felt a little bump, and I was like, ooh, that's not the feeling that is usually there. It was maybe like gumball sized. And I could like pick it up, move it around. It wasn't super painful. So I brought it up to my oncologist. She got an ultrasound on it. And I remember I got the ultrasound on that little lump in my side on Halloween, finished my ultrasound, left the cancer clinic, went and grabbed a coffee, like less than a block away, sat down at the coffee shop, and my phone rang. And it was my oncologist. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, whoa, okay, we're doing this again. She was like, it doesn't look like a cyst. It doesn't look like a hematoma. It is very calcified, which is what bone cancer metastasizes as. It's very like bony and like spiky. She was like, we could biopsy it, but we're just going to remove it. We kind of know what this is. I'm sorry. I was like, okay. So I got a PET scan as well around that time to make sure that there was no other metastases that we couldn't see. Just because this one was weird. Osteosarcoma doesn't usually metastasize to subcutaneous tissue. So we were kind of expecting more in my lungs or in other organs. And the PET scan was clear other than that, which was great. So we did that excision surgery actually on my birthday. I have a weird thing for holidays, I think. Like initial diagnosis on Valentine's Day. I finished treatment the first time on Halloween. And then we have the Halloween ultrasound. And then, yeah, on my 26th birthday, we did the excision surgery. So I baked cupcakes for my entire surgical team, because what else are you going to do at that point? And we got it out, clear margins, came back. The pathology came back as osteosarcoma, which we kind of already knew. And then my next scan after that showed a lump in my breast. And we were very confused by that as well, because again, kind of a weird spot for osteosarcoma to go, but fine. I waited a long time for breast imaging. I think I waited like 3 months because it's so backed up in my province. And by the time they biopsy, mammogram, CT, whatever, biopsy came back as osteosarcoma. And again, we were like, okay, let's do a PET scan before we do surgery just to make sure there's nothing else. And unfortunately, there was something else. And this time it was a 9-centimeter tumor in my lung pressed up against my heart, which was not there less than 3 months before that scan. So it grew fast. So this time it's unfortunately inoperable, which kind of puts me in the incurable category now, where we can't take it out. Chemotherapy doesn't really shrink osteosarcoma. Radiation can kind of sometimes, I think, but right now I'm doing inpatient chemotherapy again. And that kind of came on really quickly. Like, I got a call on a Friday in April that it was back, it was inoperable, we needed to start treatment ASAP. Me and my partner finished that phone call, looked at each other, and he was like, do you want to get married on Sunday? I was like, absolutely, I do. It was the easiest yes. We plan on getting engaged this year. We've been together for over 7 years now. But my health was finally getting a little better, so we thought maybe an engagement would be good this year. We just skipped that. We got married in our backyard. It was super fun. We had like the perfect day, planned a wedding in under 36 hours. And then had our wedding on Sunday, and then Monday morning I went in for chemotherapy, which was a very strange honeymoon for both of us. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at now. I have 2 more rounds of inpatient chemo left, and then I'm going to be starting a more targeted treatment from home that should work for anywhere from 3 months to a year, and then it will probably stop working, and then I'll be looking into clinical trials. Married life's been great. It's actually the exact same as the life we had before, except now we have rings. Yeah, he's been a great support and a great rock through all of this for me. And it felt very correct to do that in the 2 days that we had between learning that I don't have too much time left and starting chemo again. It was a very good morale booster for us in a way. It's been difficult hearing that. I mean, initially we didn't even know that the chemotherapy that I'm on right now would work. It was very much a shot in the dark. We hoped it would. But the prognosis I was given was it could be a few months. Hopefully it's more than a year, and no more than a few years. So it's a very broad prognosis, and I've already outlived the few months because the chemo is working and stabilized the tumor. Like I said, it won't shrink, but it certainly stopped growing, the one in my breast and the one in my lung. So we count that as a win. It's dying, which is also great. So it was very difficult to hear those words initially, but it doesn't really do me any good to dwell on them too much. Obviously, I still think about it a lot, but I have a lot more life outside of that prognosis that I'm very stubborn and very determined to live. So I choose to believe that I will outlive even the no more than a few years, because that's all I can do, really. I think the one thing that I'm probably the most proud of through all of this is that I've taken up a lot of work within research and advocacy for young adult cancer, as well as like sarcomas and rare cancers. So I'm very proud. I work with the Terry Fox Research Institute, which is probably one of the bigger research institutes for cancer in Canada. And I work on a lot of patient panels and patient working groups for access to precision medicine in Canada, as well as just like awareness and advocacy of young adult cancer. So I think that is something that's also been really healing for me. The ability to give back and the ability to work as a patient and give that patient perspective to scenarios where it's like so desperately needed. I feel like it's been something that's really, really filled my cup and really fueled me to keep going, alongside having just like a really wonderful community of friends and cancer friends and my husband and family. Those are kind of the things that have kept me going. I think if I could go back, I would tell myself a lot of things, but mostly to appreciate every moment that I had from that point forward, because sometimes I feel like I took the few years where I was no evidence of disease for granted, where I was really hard on myself with my healing. I thought I wasn't getting better fast enough. I wasn't going back to work fast enough. I wasn't walking as far as I wanted to unassisted or things like that. I was rushing my healing quite a bit. And I didn't take the time to enjoy the fact that I didn't have cancer at that point. And then obviously I've dealt with a lot more recurrences since then. So sometimes I look back at that period and I'm like, oh, you were so mean to yourself. You should have been a lot nicer and enjoyed that time. But I don't regret it. I think I had to do that to learn that I could be gentle on myself. I would definitely say find your community. And a lot of the time that can be friends and family, but also a lot of the time friends and family don't necessarily understand exactly what you're going through. I had such a good support system through my first round of treatment, but I didn't have any other friends that had dealt with cancer. And that was really difficult because my friends and family didn't quite understand, and I didn't want them to. Like, I was like, I don't want you, because the only way to understand is to go through it, and I don't want you to go through it. So find your community, whether that's with a support group or through social media or something. Just find people that have been through something similar to you that you can either follow, listen to, befriend. Just having people in your corner that know kind of what you're going through is really, really, really valuable. And it's something that has really helped me through the latter half of my diagnosis.